Welcome back. In this lesson I'm going to show you the approach I would take to recreate this file. Before we get started, let me mention that there's no right or wrong way to construct this drawing. The most important thing is that we accurately reproduce the geometry. In fact, I'm going to use as many different tools as possible. That way this exercise will also serve as a nice review. I'll start by creating a new file. I'll click the new icon and I will use the acad.dwt template. I will then click the View tab and I'll come down to the User Interface panel and I'll choose Tile Vertically. This way I can see a nice side-by-side view of the example and my new file. I'm going to click to put the focus on the example drawing and I'll zoom out and center this on screen. I'll then go back to the Home tab. Let's start by taking a look at the layers that are used in this file. I will open the Layers Properties Manager and it looks like I need to create a center, a hatch and a part layer. We can see the appropriate settings over here to the right. So I'll click to put the focus on my drawing. I will go back to the Layer Properties Manager and click the new layer icon. I will call this the layer part and press enter. I will then press enter again to create another new layer. I will call this one Center Lines, enter, and I'll call this one Hatch. Now the Center Lines layer will need a different line type, so I will click the line type property for that layer. I'll then come down and click load, and I would like to load the Center to line type into the drawing, and that same line type used in the other file. Now that's in my drawing, I will select it and click OK to assign it to the layer. Next we'll take care of the colors. I'm going to click the color property for the part layer and I'll set this to yellow. I'll click the color property for center lines. We will make that green. And then we will set the hatch layer to red. I'd like to start this drawing by creating this large circle. So I'm going to open the layer control and I will set the part layer current. I will launch the circle command. I will pick a point on screen for my center point, and this circle has a diameter of 3.35. We can see that in the section view. Next I would like to add some center lines. I will set the center lines layer current, and I'm going to draw a line from the shift right click quadrant at the top of the circle to shift right click quadrant at the bottom. Next I need to create a line going left to right. There are lots of ways I can do this. Let's try and do it using grips. I'm going to select this last line that I drew. I will click the midpoint grip and right click and I'll choose rotate. I'd like to create a rotated copy, so I will choose copy down here from the command line and I'll enter a rotation angle of 90 degrees. When I'm finished I'll press escape a couple of times to deselect the entities. Next I would like to project the center lines outside the circle a little bit, like they are in the example. I'll do that using the scale command. I'll select those center lines and press enter. I'm going to scale them from the center of the circle and then I will click on the screen when they're about the same size as the example. Next I will create this circle that defines the centers of these holes. I will launch the circle command. I'll create this circle from the center of the large one. This circle has a diameter of 2.15. Let's go back to the part layer and I'll create the circle for the first hole. I will draw that at the intersection of my center lines. This circle has a diameter of 0.436. Now I have a perfect opportunity to use the polar array. I'll move up to Modify panel and launch the polar array command. I'll select my circle and press enter. The center of my array will be the center of the part, and then I will come up to the context sensitive ribbon and I'm going to change the number of items from 6 to 4. Now that my array looks perfect, I'm going to come down and click the X to close the array. Next we will create this inner circle. This circle has a diameter of 1.5. Finally I'm going to create the smallest circle. I will press the spacebar to go back into the command. I will create it from the center of the part, and this center has a diameter of 0.65. We can see that from the section view. Let's pan this over and I'd like to project this part over to the right such that I can start working on the section view. I'll do that by launching the line command and I'll create my line from the quadrant of the top of the part. I will lock my ortho and I will drag this over about 5 units. A precise length isn't necessary here. I'll then copy this object from the endpoint to the quadrant on the other side of the part. Then I will launch the line command and connect these two endpoints, and that creates the back edge of the section view. Let's offset this edge forward at a distance of 0.5. When I'm finished, I'll press Escape. I'm going to add these fillets next. I will launch the fillet command. I will select the radius option. This fillet has a radius of 0.2. I will then select the front edge and the projection line. I will press the space bar to go right back into the command, and I'll select the two edges on the other side. Now I am going to offset this back edge forward to create the front edge of the part. I will launch the offset command. We will come forward to a distance of 1.25. I'll grab the back edge and I'll offset it to the left. Next I'm going to create the center line, so I'll go back to the center line layer. I will launch the line command and I'll draw my line from the midpoint of the front edge to the midpoint of the back. Now I have an entity that I can offset up and down to create these additional edges. We will represent this hole first. I will launch the offset command, and what's my offset distance? It's going to be half of 0.65. So I'm going to type Ctrl 8 to bring up the calculator. I will type 0.65 divided by 2. I will then click Apply and then Enter to accept value, and I'll offset this line up and then I will offset it down. Let's use the offset command again. This edge is based on the diameter of the circle, which is 1.5. So I will launch offset. My distance will be half of 1.5 or 0.75. I will offset my center line up and down. Next, I will put this geometry on the correct layers. I will select these two center lines on the top and bottom. Then I will open the layer control and put them on the part layer. Then I will clean up my geometry by launching the trim command. I'll grab these outer two edges and the top edge of the bottom of the part, and I will use those to trim off these entities that I don't need. Let's tackle the chamfer now. I will launch the chamfer command. We are going to use the angle method based on the way it's dimensioned. The chamfer length on the first line will be 0.25. The angle will be 45. I will click the front edge and the projected line. I will press the spacebar and I'll grab the edges on the other side. Now that I have a new edge, I'm going to project that back over to the front view to create another circle. I will launch the line command and create a line from this edge. My ortho is locked. I'll just drag this through the front view. I'll then zoom in on the part. Unfortunately, I have the wrong layer current to draw my circle. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll grab this circle as an example. I'll right click and choose Add Selected, and I'll draw my new circle from the center of this one to the intersection of the center line. When I'm finished, I'll select this projected center line and press Delete. Let's take care of the hole next. I'll do that by launching a line command. I'll grab the center of this hole at the top of the part, and I will project this over to the section view. Now I can offset this line up and down to define the width of the hole. I will launch offset. What's my distance? Well, it's half of 0.436. So I'll hit Ctrl 8 to bring up the calculator again, and I will type 0.436 divided by 2. I'll click Apply and then Enter to accept that value, and I will offset the center line up and down. I will then launch the trim command, and I'll grab these outer edges and use them to cut off the center lines. I'll select the outermost center lines, and we will use the layer control to put those on part layer. Now I need to make the center line a little bit longer, like it is in the example. I'm going to use the scale command for that. I will launch scale, select the center line and press Enter. I'll grab it from the midpoint of the object, and then I will zoom out and I will drag this out. So it's about the same size as the example. Since the part is symmetrical, let's mirror this geometry to the other side. I will launch mirror, I will select my 3 lines and press Enter, and then I will use the endpoints of the center line to define my mirror. I'm going to launch scale one more time. Let's scale this center line up. I will scale it from the midpoints and we will drag it out such that it's similar to the others. Now we will take care of the hatch. I will set the hatch layer current. I will launch the hatch command and I'll hover inside one of these closed shapes. Fortunately, the default settings are perfect in this case, so it's very easy. I'll click inside the remaining closed shapes and I'll press enter when I'm finished. Finally, I will use the move command. I will select my section view and press enter, and I'll pick it up from the endpoint of this center line and drag it over a little closer to the part. Let's do one last thing. I'd like to clean up the center lines at the center of each of these holes. I will do that by zooming in on the center of the part. I will launch the circle command and I'll create a pair of circles that represent the size of a gap in the center line. Next, I will copy these two circles from the center to the center of each of the holes. I will then use this geometry to trim the center lines. I will launch the trim command. I'll press enter so that everything becomes a cutting edge, and then I will work my way around and click on the areas that I'd like to trim. When I'm finished, I can remove these circles. A really quick way to do that would be to select one of them. I'll right click and choose Select Similar. That grabs all of them and I will press the Delete key. Well, how did you do? If you got the drawing finished, congratulations, you're doing fantastic. If you struggled with this project, don't worry. Try running through the drawing again using this video as a guide. Afterwards, see if you can complete the drawing entirely on your own. With a little more practice, you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. Good luck!